Brought to you by Pepsi.
A win is a win, and the Auburn Tigers will take it. 31-24, the final over Louisville. This Ricardo Lewis end around, 7 yards early in the fourth quarter, sealed the deal for Auburn. We thought it was 31-10 at the time. Louisville came back and had 2 garbage touchdowns, you could say, in the last 6 minutes. But regardless, a game where you thought Auburn had it in the hand, it was not so much. It came down to the final minutes.
And that is something that we predicted coming out of the gates, that Louisville was going to fight for this one. They never gave up. They fought to the bitter end of this. And of course, as you saw, the final outcome, 31-24. Let's get to some highlights for you, show you how things unfolded on the field today.
The one man everyone was looking at, Jeremy Johnson, number 6, the quarterback. We'll get to him in a minute. But first, the first play of the game.
The first play of the game, setting the tone, no doubt about it. Petrino goes with a trick play from freshman quarterback Lamar Jackson. Trey Matthews, though, the Georgia product, intercepts the football to set up Auburn's first score of the football game, and that's the next drive.
You knew Auburn was going to take it right down the field. They did. Jeremy Johnson, the fake, 1 yard in for the score at 7-0.
All right, then we go to the second quarter of the football game. Auburn capitalizing on Louisville's mistakes once again. Montravius Adams here gets the handoff. He hands off the football. He forces the fumble. Justin Garrett with the scoop and score to make it 14-0 Auburn. 82 yards for the fumble return.
And that offense was dormant. They were stymied all first half long. 56 yards. Daniel Carlson, career long.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? So it's 17-0 Auburn at the half, and you're looking at this, you're thinking, okay, the offense wasn't great. The defense came on in the second quarter, and you thought, okay, not a great first half, but you'll take it.
Absolutely. And then 17-0 at the half. Gus Malzahn said that Jeremy Johnson coming into the game looked like he had a little bit of nerves. He threw those first 2 interceptions of the game, and then, of course, came back out. And we were hoping to see a little more from Jeremy Johnson. A few injuries in the mix there. And, of course, a guy that I saw that really stepped up in this game, Peyton Barber at running back. We thought Rock Thomas was going to be a solid contender at running back, but Peyton Barber really stepping up in this one. Let's send it to the second half highlights now.
Yeah, 2 names, Johnson and Barber. They were pretty much the entire third quarter. Johnson and Ricardo Lewis. This is 33 yards. It is now 24-0 Auburn. You think the game is over, but
there's always a but, right? Well, Gus Malzahn said Johnson, like I said earlier, had those nerves in the first half of the game. Some of the same here. Here in the third interception of the game, he was picked off by Tremaine Washington. And, of course, that set up this next play.
Lamar Jackson, that was a 10-yard score. It's 24-10. Louisville only down by 14 now.
Here's the play fake around the corner, the quarterback keeper. Louisville, though, would keep things interesting to the bitter end here. Auburn, though, they were able to survive this one, 31-24. And as Gus Malzahn, when he said he got off the field, so many question marks in this game, but they were able to survive. Now they can come out, make those adjustments, and figure out what they need to do heading into week 2.
You know, Will Muschamp joked this week saying, I'll take any kind of win, any way it comes. This is what he was talking about. Auburn was not fundamentally sound throughout the game. You saw that with the mistakes that we'll get to in a minute. You know, Louisville could have scored a lot of times when Auburn, 3 interceptions. Louisville dominates the stat sheet. Doesn't matter, though. Auburn still gets the win.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Dominating the stat sheet, time of possession, rushing yards on the ground, and that was something that was interesting. Peyton Barber, though, he's somebody that really impressed me. We'll talk about him coming up. He had 24 carries, 114 yards. He was Auburn's leading rusher for the day. Ricardo Lewis, 3 receptions, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Not Duke Williams. Duke Williams came out behind him. But it was very impressive to see that these guys offensively, not the production that we're quite used to, but defensively, those guys really stepped up. They came out of the gates a little slow on defense with the pressure, but they were able to really turn it up there towards the later part of the first quarter.
The most underrated play of the game was the first one. Louisville, you have no idea who the quarterback's going to be. Is it going to be Will Gardner? He didn't start. Reggie Bonifant, he got the start, but he didn't throw the first pass. A backup, Lamar Jackson, threw the first pass, and it was not a good idea.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson, the freshman coming in, so inexperience certainly playing into that one. And I think that was kind of what sort of happened here with Auburn as well, just some of the inexperience coming out here in those presser situations, and I think that's what we saw from Jeremy Johnson as well.
It was not the start you wanted to see for Louisville because they knew they had to do everything right. You give Auburn the ball 10 seconds into the game, they're going to score. And Louisville, I mean, looking at this team, forcing turnovers in the first half. If you were going to say Jeremy Johnson had 2 interceptions in the first half and Auburn was going to be up 17-0, you would have shook your head and say, no way. Louisville did not capitalize in that first half. 14 points off turnovers for Auburn in the first half. Louisville had 0 off of 2 turnovers, and that was the difference in the first half. 14 off turnovers, none for Louisville, and that's why it was 17-zip at the half.
Turnovers certainly a big key factor there. Now, when you look at later in the game, it was interesting to see after Jeremy Johnson's 3rd interception, that next Ricardo Lewis touchdown, they decided to stay on the ground. They ran 12 plays. They stayed on the ground 10 of those plays, which I thought was interesting to see, that they decided to play it safe. They were milking the clock, not the hurry-up offense you're used to seeing. They were milking the clock. They were trying to, push those guys and keep Louisville out of the end zone.
And you got to wonder how rattled Jeremy Johnson may have gotten. He came in with all the hype in the world. He didn't want the hype. He said, hey, all right, hold on. I don't want the hype. I haven't done anything yet. He went in there in that second half, again, 3 total interceptions. He was under 50% passing. Let's take a look at his stats here. The guy, in his mind, is going to say he had a mediocre game. 11 for 21, 140 yards, 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions. So much nerves, or just first game playing with the new offense and not really knowing a lot of the guys?
Yeah, and that's what Gus Malzahn said going into the first half. Jeremy Johnson in the first half coming out, like you said, the 2 interceptions. You had to wonder, was it nerves coming into this? We talked about it all week long. He was ready to come out there and prove himself. Now, there were times where he looked good, but he looked good in the pocket, but as soon as he got out of the pocket, you could tell he got a little rattled, making those poor decisions. And one thing that I noticed, Louisville's defense, their safeties were all over those passes right down the middle. So they were not fooling anybody as far as that was concerned. So they were reading all over that. So that was a lot of missed opportunities as well. And, where Jeremy Johnson was throwing into double coverage.
No doubt Auburn wants to establish a running game. And you can look at that first half and look at what Rock Thomas did. He had some good runs. He got injured there midway through. And you got to wonder, was the offense planned to run the football? If that wasn't going to work, you had an awful lot of pressure on Jeremy Johnson. And it could have been the fact that, Johnson was expecting the pressure, but when it came, sometimes, he made the poor decisions and he wasn't ready because I think they thought they were going to run the ball better than they did in that first half.
Absolutely. Now, Bobby Petrino currently on the podium right now doing post-game sound. We're going to get you Gus Malzahn as soon as we can. As soon as he hits the podium, we're going to bring him to you live. Gus Malzahn's full post-game press conference as well as some players. So we'll have that coming up for you here momentarily. So stick with us right here on the WIET 42 Red Zone.
All right, we're actually going to stay from break. Our producers tell us. Just want to look at some of these stats. Like you said, Louisville dominated all these stats. First downs, 27-20. Pretty significant margin. Total yards, 407 for Louisville. Auburn had 327 total yards. I mean, a team who has dominated offenses, and actually Gus Malzahn on the podium right now. We're going to take that press conference live.
All right, Gus Malzahn at the podium there, of course. The feeling that you get from Gus Malzahn is that this team really came out and performed. He was happy with them. There were a lot of mistakes, but they're going to go back, break down game film. And this is what these games are all about. Remember, 2 years ago, they came out, didn't play that strong against Washington State. They went on to the national championship.
Guess what the score was of that game? 31-24. Are you into irony? Are you into fate? You never know. Maybe we'll find out at the end of the season. Time for a break here on the Red Zone post-game show. When we return, we'll go back to Dallas. Does Alabama have a quarterback? Find out.
All right, we're back on the WIET 42 Red Zone post-game show. A big win for Auburn here, a big win, and I say the score indicated that it was close, but you got to come out, you got to win your season opener, you got to perform, and now it's back to the drawing board to see where these guys come. But there's also another big game going on in Arlington, Texas tonight. Yeah,
and the guys who were calling the game here in the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, Vern Lundquist and Gary Danielson, the CBS Game of the Week crew, they know all about Alabama. They cover them every year. 16 years for Vern Lundquist to take it, actually. Ooh. Talking about Bama, he thinks that this game with Wisconsin won't be that close. People are calling Wisconsin for a potential upset. Vern says, I don't think so.
I'm never, ever, ever going to discount Alabama. Nick Saban reloads better than anybody I think I know in the country. And, Wisconsin's good. I think it's a heck of an early season test. But, boy, I've learned over 16 years doing the SEC that if Saban is the coach in Tuscaloosa, you're playing with fool's money if you're not thinking they'll do well. And I expect that they will.
Well, I don't think any Alabama fans have fool's money. That's a good sign. But they are still searching for a quarterback, and his partner, Gary Danielson, has his own opinion on Alabama. Is it important that they have a star quarterback or not?
You know, college football has changed in a lot of ways, but maybe the one that it's changed the most, it's become more quarterback-centric. It's much like the NFL now. It's very hard to win without a franchise quarterback. So eventually, Alabama's going to have to figure out a guy. Now, Blake Sims saved them last year. Now, they had to tweak their style to help him save them, and these guys are not like Blake. So it'll go back to a little bit more of the way McElroy played at the quarterback position or A.J. McCarron played. So it'll be a different style. But, you know, important position. Can't hide a quarterback.
Now, we'll just go ahead and say it right now. This may be the one topic Nick Saban is sick of the most hearing about in his entire career, the 2015 Alabama quarterback, and we may have an answer here soon.
Yeah, those are the two things Nick Saban hates talking about, the depth chart and the hypotheticals. So now we're finally going to find out who that starting quarterback is. We're hoping that Chris Frankel might have a little insight. He's on the ground in Arlington. Chris, what's going on there?
Guys, I hate to disappoint you, but we are 30 minutes from kickoff. The fans must...
And the wheels on the bus go round.
Everybody's sound peace of mind. We can stop talking about it, right?
I know, we can stop talking about it. That's the beauty of all this. Now, we're here in Atlanta right now. Auburn just pulling off the 31-24 win against Louisville, a big start to their season. And we got plenty more here on the WIT 42 Red Zone.
Yeah, when we come back, we talked all about those running backs. Rock Thomas, how hurt is he? And the emergence of Peyton Barber. Stay with us. So Rock Thomas started the game for Auburn at running back, and he looked pretty good. Shifty moves, quick guy. 6 carries, 26 yards, but then he went down with an injury, had to leave, and we were told that he had to go for some x-rays. No idea what's going on with Rock Thomas's injury right now. We'll try to get that as soon as we can. But he had a guy behind him who played pretty well in his absence.
Yeah, Peyton Barber has really been putting in the reps for Auburn in the past 2 years. He's been working hard for this moment. He's been kind of hiding in the shadows of the other big running backs, Trey Mason, Cameron Artis-Payne. And when you draw some comparisons, you know, Peyton Barber stepped up 24 carries, 114 yards. But not only was he running the football, he was also blocking, and he made some good receptions there. So he really stepped up big in his moment.
You know, it was between him and Jovan Robinson. Robinson only got 2 carries, 16 yards. Robinson's more of the bowling ball. He's going to run right at you. Rock Thomas is going to run around you, and Peyton Barber seems like he's kind of an in-the-middle guy. So Peyton Barber, as of right now, seems like he's emerged over Jovan Robinson. We don't know yet. Going to be a heck of a battle there. And speaking of battles, not really a battle when you got a huge core like you do with the linebackers. Let's hear from Chris Frost, Auburn linebacker, after the win today. It was that bend but don't break mentality, and I think you can see from this game, Auburn's defense is going to get better as the year goes on.
I think that's the key here, getting better. Chris Frost coming to this game as an oar on the depth chart, which was somewhat surprising, but of course Trey Matthews came in and also had a really good game for Auburn. I think overall, Muschamp, you could see the look on his face, of course, bringing that angst, that boom power that he loves, but you saw a smile on Muschamp's face more than that anger that we're used to seeing. So I think that was very much a positive. Now, we're not done here in the WIT 42 Red Zone. Plenty more to come. We're going to get back in the locker room, get some post-game reaction from more of the players as Auburn survived this one against Louisville. Your final score, 31-24. Stay with us. We're back in a moment. And we talked about this before. Auburn capitalizing on Louisville's mistakes, and it happened once again to make the score 14-0 on this. Montravius Adams stepping up big, getting the hand on the ball, swatting it out, forces the fumble, and guess who steps in? Scoop and score is what I like to call it. Justin Garrett goes 82 yards on the fumble return to make it 14-0, setting the tone for this game and helping put some points on the board for Auburn heading into the first half of the football game.
You can argue that that was the biggest play of the game because Auburn's offense wasn't doing anything in that second quarter. That touchdown by Garrett was the spark, and I think you can tell with this Auburn defense that they are going to be an opportunistic defense who makes turnovers and scores points, something we have not seen in the last 5 years. Remember, Auburn's defense has given up 5,000 yards each of the last 5 years. They had never done that in school history. You can tell Will Muschamp's already changing the mentality there.
Yeah, trying to trend those numbers downward. And I said this before the break, you could see Will Muschamp's face. I remember looking up and seeing him that smile on his face when he ran that touchdown in, knowing this is his defensive guys doing this and turning this game momentum around and showing that these guys are ready to come out and play. Because we did start off at the beginning kind of questioning this defense and how big are they going to step up. And of course, in the first quarter, there was still some uncertainty there.
That first drive, Auburn wasn't getting any pressure. That D-line, you're wondering, when is it going to happen? But then that second drive, third drive, you thought, okay, this is what you were expecting, getting pressure on the quarterback, and that's something that Auburn is going to try to do throughout the rest of the year. Again, it's a work in progress. Will Muschamp getting paid more than $1 million, so I think this defense is going to do pretty good as the year goes on. The big bucks. Yeah, the big bucks. Time for a break. No big bucks here. You can find some during the break. When we return, try to get you some more player sound in the locker room. Stay with us. It's the WIT post-game Red Zone show. Back here on the Red Zone post-game show, talking about that D-line before the break. Carl Lawson was playing hurt throughout this game, but not the same injury from last year. Had a hip problem, so he battled that throughout the game. Travius Adams, defensive tackle in the middle, Dontavius Russell, Devontae Lambert, all three of those guys were huge, clogging up that middle, and it really kind of set the tone for Louisville not being able to do anything on offense. Lamar Jackson on the ground was pretty much all Louisville could get going there halfway through the game. That was the quarterback problem for Louisville. Auburn had their own quarterback problems, but it was more so first game jitters maybe?
First game jitters. Really in the first half, you could just see that Jeremy Johnson was making ill-advised throws, throwing down the middle into double coverage. You know, his stats kind of speak for themselves. He had 11 yards, 11 receptions for 21 for 137 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. And that's where you really have to question, you know, how ready was he for this game, how prepared. But again, Gus Malzahn is not too worried about it. We heard from him here just a little bit ago. He thinks Jeremy's going to shake this off. He's going to come back out and be ready. Let's hear from Jeremy Johnson here in the locker room after the game.
Mental mistake. That's all what that was. And credit to Louisville. That's a great defense. Don't get me wrong.
So Jeremy Johnson there confirming with us that it wasn't jitters. Gus Malzahn thinking it was jitters. But overall, he seems pretty confident in himself to go out there and just made some ill-advised mistakes. And he thinks he can come out there, get those corrected, watch some game film, break that down. I think, though, we want to hear the consensus. There's been a lot of hype surrounding Jeremy Johnson. Let's see what the fans perhaps think of Jeremy Johnson.
Jeremy Johnson wants to speak little and let his play on the field talk. The fans, they're all about talking.
I think Jeremy's got a little bit of growth, and it's just finding him, you know, just maturing during the game and during the season as it goes on. It's his first start. True first start. He's had a start, but yeah.
You know what?
He's new. Takes time.
He's doing really well, and I think everybody's a little nervous about nothing. And you know, a couple of games into the season, we'll see the real testament. And I think he's doing really well so far.
I think he did a pretty good job. You know, he was a little shaky with some of his passes, but he did a really good job.
It is a win. I think that Auburn is actually going to do very well. Louisville is a great team. They've always been a great team. It's not like we're playing somebody else like some of the other teams.
Fans always have their own opinions on how the game goes, and when your team only wins by 7 points, some of them maybe not so happy, and the players, you know, they're not very happy as well, but that's why you have 11 more games at least to play.
Yeah, and Gus Malzahn talked about it. He said this is, coming into this game, this is all about making those adjustments, figuring out what you need to do better, and he feels like this team is well on their way to doing that. Of course, next week they get Jacksonville State, then in week 3 it's going to be LSU, so they're certainly going to be tested early on. They got to get that taken care of.
Yes, too, yeah.
Now, plenty more on the WIAT Red Zone post-game show. We got Ricardo Lewis, Auburn's leading receiver in this game. We're going to hear from him in the locker room coming up. Stay with us. You know, I want to go back to Peyton Barber. We've been talking about him quite a bit here, and the reason is he's put in 2 years behind a Gus Malzahn team. In the past 2 years, they've produced 1,000+ yards. You had Trey Mason in 2013. You had Cameron Artis-Payne in 2014. And if you're a guy like Peyton Barber, you commit to Auburn with hopes that you're going to play. And I've watched this kid on the sideline. He's always intent. He learns the playbook. He really puts it forth the effort. And you could see him battling out there. He wanted this game. He wanted to shine in his performance, knowing that Rock Thomas was down and he was going to take this moment and embrace it.
And don't think Gus Malzahn there doesn't recognize what Peyton Barber did in this game. Rock Thomas goes down. You have no idea who's going to step up. Peyton Barber, you could say, was the most unsung hero in this game. You did not expect him to do what he did, and had a big part in Auburn actually moving the football and winning the game 31-24. Time for another break here on the WIT Red Zone post-game show. We're going to get to some more interviews, including Montravius Adams, the big clog in the middle of that new Will Muschamp defense. We'll be right back. Auburn fans have seen this play over and over, but they love it, so we'll show it to them again. The first play from scrimmage for Louisville. That's a trick play, but no way, Jose. Will Muschamp's era couldn't have gone any better to start, and that defense played pretty well throughout the rest of the game, especially that D-line. They had 7 sacks from 5 different guys. 7 sacks from 5 different guys, and one guy who stepped up big in that second turnover. We've talked about him a couple times here. Montravius Adams, he led the way with 2 sacks for this team. We talked to him after the game. He talked about this first defensive performance out of the gates.
I like that. This old guy was in the crosswalk, man. I like that. He was going real slow.
I think Montravius Adams, it's his time to shine. He's a junior on this defense, played in 13 games last year, started 10. He knows he's got to be that force in the middle, and he did a great job tonight, and you can expect him to do well in the future. The Georgia Dome behind us here, it's got 2 more years, including this one, to host the SEC Championship, and it is done. Over next door is we're going to start playing. And you talk about the SEC Championship game. I was here for the SEC Championship game when Alabama played Missouri, and that dome over there, I've got to tell you, looks quite a bit different. It is going up fast. It is going up furious. It is going to be a fun one to play in. I can't wait for it, and of course I know Auburn is going to be excited to hopefully get back to the Georgia Dome later this year, but let's not jump too far ahead. We're here on the WIT 42 Red Zone post-game show. Stay with us for some final thoughts. The game is over. Now you got to think about what's next. Moving on to week 2, Auburn gets to go to Jordan-Hare Stadium, where they will play in front of college football's biggest video board. I know those guys have been preparing for that because it's going to be a different feel. And then in week 3 here on WIT 42, you can catch Auburn's matchup with LSU at 2:30. It's going to be exciting. But be sure to tune in tonight at 10:15. We're going to have another edition of the Red Zone where we're going to put a big bow on all this fun of our first Saturday of college football. And hey, thanks for sticking with us this entire hour. A lot of college football going on tonight. Glad to have WIT be your source for college football. We'll see you later tonight, 10:15 on the Red Zone Show. Have a good night, everyone.